don't know, Chris, do we like our new purchase?
For sulfur to pick up the slack, Parker's looking for it to deliver at least 100 ounces in just 2 days of running.
Chris Doumitt came out of retirement and saved Parker Schnabel's mind with one risky move that paid nearly $200,000. He wasn't even a miner at first, just a carpenter who picked up a shovel when no one showed up. Years later, Parker called him back, begging him to fix the very machine Chris once built with his bare hands. The shocking part? Parker's non-stop pushing had almost destroyed the wash plant before Chris took over and saved the day.
It's just not a matter of turning the machine on and turn the water on and start running dirt. You gotta figure it out.
Tune in, because what happens next could break their entire partnership. And it all started with one desperate call. The unexpected, craziest miner. The story of Chris Doumitt is a strange one because he was never supposed to be a gold miner in the first place. He was a carpenter by trade, a man who was good with a hammer and nails, not a shovel and a sluice box. His whole adventure started back in the very first season of Gold Rush when the Todd Hoffman crew hired him. His job was just to build a cabin for the team to live in. But in the messy world of gold mining, things rarely go as planned. One day, a crew member didn't show up for work. Without being asked, Chris just picked up a shovel and stepped in to help.
What's going on, Chris? What are you thinking?
Hey, Mitch. I think we'll shut that plant down and see where this gold is going.
From that moment on, he was a gold miner. But what Chris didn't know then was that this one simple act would lead him straight into a split decision that would change everything and put him face to face with a machine that would define his future. He worked hard with the Hoffman crew, but soon the team had a big problem. They had 2 different places to mine, and the leaders, Todd Hoffman and Dave Turin, decided to split the crew in half. The thing is, this forced everyone to make a choice. As Chris remembered, the crew was given the option to work with either Todd or Dave. For Chris, the decision was easy. He felt he had a closer work ethic with Dave Turin, who was known for being a hard-working, no-nonsense miner. He announced his choice and joined Dave's team to work at a place called Indian River. It was on Dave's crew that Chris first met the machine that would change his life, a giant wash plant nicknamed Big Red. Big Red was a huge, complicated shaker plant that cost $250,000.
And we had Big Red.
Costing $250,000.
It was supposed to be the key to finding a lot of gold, but there was one big problem. It arrived in pieces, and nobody really knew how to put it together or make it run right. Chris explained that he had no idea what it was supposed to look like or how it even operated. So he and Dave got to work. They had to lift the giant screen deck into place with an excavator because they didn't have a crane. They figured out where all the springs and bolts went. It was like building a giant, difficult puzzle out of steel. But Chris did more than just help build it. He learned Big Red inside and out. He figured out all its quirks and problems. When it would jam up, he learned how to fix it. He learned how to feed the dirt in at just the right speed to get the most gold. He basically tamed the Big Red beast. And it worked. The crew had a fantastic season, finding a grand total of 803 ounces of gold, which was worth over $1.2 million. As they celebrated around a campfire at the end of the season, Chris felt like he had finally done it.
Yeah.
We've got a grand total of 803 right now.
Yes. 803.
Yeah.
Dang, that's
Man, that's cool.
guys.
He was a successful gold miner. He thought to himself that it was a good time to go home, back to fishing and golfing with his buddies. He had reached the top and he was ready to retire. Chris was serious about retiring. At a special live TV show for Gold Rush called The Dirt, he made his big announcement in front of everyone. He explained that he had helped his crew become successful, and now it was time to step aside and let a younger person have a chance. Everyone was sad to see him go. They thanked him for everything he had done. It felt like the end of an era. The quiet, reliable veteran was finally hanging up his boots for good. But you won't believe what happened next. Right in the middle of this emotional moment on live television, a new person walked onto the stage. It was a young, confident kid named Parker Schnabel. He was only 17 years old at the time. He walked right up to the Hoffman crew and announced he was looking for veteran miners to join his own crew in the Yukon. It was a bold move from such a young kid. Chris remembered thinking it was funny. He described Parker as a cocky but cool character. Chris had actually met Parker before, when he was even younger. What's really going on behind the scenes is that Parker grew up right next to the Hoffman's first mine site. Chris remembered him as a little kid, only 15 years old, who would come riding up to their camp on a tiny motorcycle. He recalled Parker as a cocky, arrogant little kid even then. Parker was already a smart businessman. He would sell firewood to the Hoffman crew because they didn't have a generator for power. And he wasn't afraid to make a profit. He famously said he charged them double what he usually did. He definitely left an impression. After his first retirement, Chris did end up joining Parker's crew for a few seasons. But the desire to relax and enjoy his life was still strong. So, after 3 more years of hard work, Chris decided to retire again. This time, he was really done. He went home and swapped his shovel for a set of golf clubs. But the quiet life wasn't what he thought it would be. He explained that he was getting kind of bored and was getting under his wife's feet. He missed the action. He missed the challenge. He missed the North. His wife knew it too. He just wasn't willing to admit it to himself yet. The $200,000 deal. The story could have ended there, with Chris enjoying a quiet life at home. But one day, the phone rang. It was Parker Schnabel, and this call would change everything. The thing is, Parker was now a young mine boss himself, and he was in big trouble. He had made a deal and bought the old wash plant, Big Red, from the Hoffman crew. He knew it was a good machine, but he didn't know how to run it properly. His crew was struggling. They were feeding the dirt in too fast, and the machine was jamming up all the time. They were losing gold, and Parker was getting desperate. He knew there was only one person in the world who was a true expert on Big Red, Chris Doumitt. So Parker made the call. It was a desperate plea for help. He asked Chris if there was any way he could convince him to come up to the mine, explaining that Chris would really be saving his operation. Chris remembered his special relationship with the machine. He had spent a lot of time with Big Red and knew it well. At home, Chris told his wife about the call. He was still thinking about it when, just a few minutes later, she came back with his bags already packed. She knew he wanted to go. Chris admitted that he wanted to come back north. He just wasn't willing to say it out loud. He was going back to the Klondike. When Chris arrived at Parker's mine at Scribner Creek, he saw the problem right away. Parker was young and aggressive. His style was just go, 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 go. He wanted to push as much dirt through the plant as fast as he possibly could. Chris, with his years of experience, knew that wasn't the right way. He explained that the difference between Parker and the Hoffmans was like day and night. The Hoffmans ran the plant for very few hours a day, while Parker was extremely aggressive. Here's where it gets real messy. Parker was cranking up the speed of the plant, trying to run 180 yards of dirt an hour. Chris knew this was a mistake. He tried to tell Parker that with the type of rocky material they had, you couldn't push it. To get the gold, you had to go steady. But Parker didn't want to listen. He pushed Big Red beyond its limits, and the machine broke down completely. Parker was furious. This was the turning point. Chris, the calm veteran, stood up to the young, hot-headed boss. He made a bold offer. He told Parker to let him take control of the loader and the wash plant. He was telling Parker to step aside and trust him. Parker had a choice to make. He could keep doing things his way and failing, or he could trust the expert he had just begged to come out of retirement. Reluctantly, because he wanted to just push dirt as hard as he could, Parker agreed. He handed over the keys to the operation. It was a huge moment of trust. Chris immediately slowed the feed rate down by 20%. He ran the plant his way, slow and steady. The real test came at the next gold weigh. Parker took the gold to his landlord, the legendary miner Tony Beats, to weigh it. The result was stunning. They had found 140.65 ounces of gold, worth nearly $200,000. It was a massive success. Tony Beats was impressed and asked Parker what he did differently. And in that moment, Parker showed how much he had grown as a leader. He didn't take the credit. He gave it all to Chris. He explained to Tony that the thing that helped them the most was Chris Doumitt showing up and running the plant steady. That one sentence earned Chris Parker's trust for good. Chris felt that Parker started giving him more freedom and respect than other people. The $200,000 deal wasn't just about the money. It was about Parker learning a valuable lesson and a legendary partnership being born. Dark secrets from Gold Rush that still haunt the cast. Every great story has its secrets, the whispers that happen when the cameras are off. In the world of Gold Rush, those whispers are deafening. Fans and critics alike look past the glitter of the gold and ask hard questions about what is real, what is produced, and what truths are buried deeper than any pay dirt. What really brings up a lot of questions for viewers is the nature of reality TV itself. While everyone loves the thrill of the gold weigh-ins, many fans love to speculate about how much of the drama is truly real. You won't believe some of the most popular theories, but the biggest one is often called the manufactured drama theory. This idea suggests that some of the most dramatic moments are either heavily exaggerated or even planned by the show's producers to make for better television. The thing is, fans who believe this point to certain patterns. For example, how does a critical piece of machinery, like a water pump or a conveyor belt, always seem to break down at the worst possible moment, right before a big cleanup or just as a storm is rolling in? Is it just bad luck, or is it a convenient crisis designed to build suspense? Fans also point to arguments between crew members that seem to flare up out of nowhere and then resolve just as quickly, suspecting that these conflicts are encouraged, if not scripted, to add a human element to the mechanical process of mining. An even more extreme and controversial fan theory, one that gets whispered about in the deepest corners of fan forums, is the idea of salting the pan. This is a wild theory that suggests, in moments of desperation for a struggling crew, producers might secretly add a small amount of gold to a cleanup to guarantee a dramatic and positive outcome. Now, it's important to say that most fans don't believe this one. They know that if something like this were ever proven true, it would destroy the show's credibility entirely. But the very fact that the theory exists shows how much viewers are invested in the idea of fairness and the realness of the miners' struggles and triumphs. A more believable and widely discussed theory revolves around the show's finances, often called the hidden investors theory. Running a modern gold mine costs an incredible amount of money. We see Parker Schnabel make a $15 million gamble, but the show is never entirely clear on where all that capital comes from. This has led many fans to believe that there are silent partners involved. The theory suggests that wealthy investors, who are never shown on camera, see these miners as a high-risk, high-reward business opportunity. They provide the millions of dollars needed for land, equipment, and fuel in exchange for a percentage of the profits. This would explain how these miners can afford to take such enormous financial risks year after year, suggesting a complex business world operating just out of sight. But it's not all just theory. The show has seen its share of very real scandals that have rocked its foundation. Perhaps the most infamous of these was the Hoffman crew's Guyana disaster. Todd Hoffman, the original star of the show, had a bold dream to leave the Klondike and find a legendary glory hole of gold deep in the jungles of Guyana, South America. What followed was one of the greatest failures ever broadcast on reality television. The crew was completely unprepared for the harsh jungle environment. Their equipment sank in the mud, they struggled with the intense heat and insects, and most importantly, they found almost no gold. After investing everything they had, the entire disastrous expedition yielded a laughable 2 ounces of gold. It was a humiliating and financially devastating scandal that saw the crew limp back to North America, practically bankrupt. Another major controversy that rocked the show in its early days came from a former cast member, Jimmy Dorsey. After leaving the Hoffman crew, Dorsey was involved in a legal dispute where he claimed that the show was heavily scripted and that he was given a character to play by the producers. He alleged that his portrayal on the show was misleading and that the drama was not as real as viewers were led to believe. The thing is, this was one of the first times a cast member had publicly pulled back the curtain, and it made many fans question the authenticity of what they were watching every week. Over the years, some of the biggest scandals on Gold Rush didn't come from broken machines or bad weather. They came from shocking exits by loved crew members. These moments often felt more real and emotional than any failed dig. One of the most talked about events was when Chris Doumitt, Parker Schnabel's loyal Gold Room expert, suddenly left and joined Rick Ness's rival crew. For longtime fans, this felt like a personal betrayal. People online started debating what loyalty means and whether crew members were getting tired or pushed too hard. It also made many viewers wonder, what does a boss really owe to their workers? Is it just money and a job, or is there something more? The drama wasn't just on the goldfields. It was about real people and their relationships. Another unforgettable moment was when Dave Turin, one of the most liked miners, left the Hoffman crew. His exit wasn't peaceful. It came after a serious argument that turned physical. Fans were shocked. This showed everyone just how much pressure the miners were under and how even close friendships could break under stress. What happens when people work for weeks in tough, cold conditions with millions of dollars on the line? Sometimes things explode, and this time it was on camera. And then there's the kind of scandal that breaks the law. You won't believe this one. Tony Beets, the tough, no-nonsense Viking of the show, got into real legal trouble. In one episode, he wanted to give his old dredge a Viking-style send-off. A crew member poured gasoline into a dredge pond and set it on fire. It looked wild and exciting on TV, but the Canadian government didn't think it was funny. Environmental officers saw it, and an official investigation started. Tony and his mining company were taken to court. In the end, they had to pay over $30,000 in fines for breaking Yukon's environmental laws. This moment reminded everyone, even though these miners are on TV, they're still part of the real world. What happens on screen can lead to big consequences in real life, and sometimes a stunt meant to get ratings ends up costing a lot more than money. You won't believe how one retired fisherman became Parker's secret weapon. Can old wisdom really outshine raw ambition? Like this story? Then hit like and subscribe for more.